Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Remington McElhaney coming at you from aetuts.com. Today we have an animated sequence tutorial for you guys. So I'm going to go and show you what I'm talking about right now. Play this video. Alright, there it is. Basically, this is a shot taken inside Photoshop, turned into a sequence, exported as layers, imported inside After Effects, and then pieced together into this animation. Would not be super hard to just, go in, manually set all the keyframes for the opacity, and then you're done. Unfortunately, if you want to go back, I've found, and change the spacing or do any sort of tweaking to your animation, it can really be time consuming opening up each individual layers and changing, 3 keyframes each or whatever. So we're actually going to go ahead and use expressions today. Use an if-else statement to use one control layer right here to actually trigger the entire animation. Let's go ahead and start off in Photoshop though. I'm just going to go ahead and give you an overview of how I created this sequence, from the ground up. I shot it with a Nikon D200 for those of you that care. Just 5 FPS. It's pretty cool. And then let's go ahead and this is, it's each broken down to each individual layer. You can just turn them all off. And then they just come in like that. Let's go ahead and import our photos. Open this up. For those of you that are curious, I already edited these in Lightroom and exported it. I think Lightroom is an awesome program for photographers, and I definitely recommend it. Open these up. So creating sequences, it can be done, a million different ways. I think everybody kind of does it their own way. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I don't need this one. I'm going to go ahead and just go to work. I'm going to go ahead and control click it to select it. Copy. And something to be aware of when working with sequences I've found is you want to go ahead and paste in place. So if you go to paste special or control shift V, it'll place it exactly where it belongs. Otherwise, if you try to drag this in, you just don't want to be wrong. You can snap it in, but I found better be safe than sorry. Go ahead and just make sure it's exactly where you want it. Now you guys will also see in a second that it was on a tripod, but even just the little pushing of the shutter button will move your shot. So we're going to do a few things just to kind of see. I'm just doing exactly what I said not to do. Oh, it's going to be a fun day. Alright, here we go. Control Shift V, paste that in place. Alright, now basically we have this first layer here, and this will be our background layer right here. Turn this back on. And we're just going to make a quick selection around it. You can use whatever, floats your boat. I'm just going to draw this out. I'm hitting Control Shift I. We're going to select the inverse is what we're doing right here. Then hit delete. And what that does right here is we now have cropped out. Turn this back on. It's not looking too bad. If you actually look at it though, if we zoom in, there's a little bit of movement, which from the trampoline bouncing down and the camera being moved. This is in the very beginning of the shot. So we're just going to take the eraser, make it super soft by turning the hardness all the way down, and we're just going to, blend this shot together a little bit better. You can see the intensity on my face right there. It's like, it's a gainer. They're scary. Alright, right there, yep. And see, already looking a lot better. So we can turn this layer on now too, and we're just going to simply repeat the process. There's not a whole lot that goes into making sequences. It's really, they'll turn out as good as the amount of time you're willing to invest into them. Yeah, I don't like that. Let's try it again. Not super time consuming. I mean, you can get really involved with some of the details, but I'm going to go ahead and go select inverse right there, so you see that. Hit delete. Aha. Hit it on this layer. Let's Control Z that. Now let's hit delete. There we go. Control D to deselect. As we zoom in again, you can see there's actually some clipping of the hand, so let's just go ahead and Bust out the eraser. Look for any lines that look like they're just not quite blending well. See that right there? That's a harsh line. We'll just go ahead and boom. Now what I did when we have overlapping right here is I created a layer mask, and then if we take our paintbrush tool, we can paint it in. What's cool about doing it this way, for those of you that aren't super familiar with Photoshop, is it's non-destructive. We're not erasing actual data. If we could switch back to white and paint it on, it'll erase it. So we're not harming anything by going through. That way later on you can look at it and be like, hey, not liking how that looks, like missed a spot, fix it, super easy, and we're done. I'm going to go ahead and just do one more of the sequence just so you guys kind of get the feeling for it. Control click, edit, copy, come in here, we're going to edit, paste into place. Let's zoom out. We'll go ahead and select this. Control Shift I to select the inverse, delete, and there we go. Control D to deselect. We're going to create a layer mask. Grab our little paintbrush tool right there. Always want to zoom in, otherwise doing detailed work from far away is never easy. And we're going to put my hand back in this shot because I killed it with that last one. And basically, you know, frame by frame, just import them until you are at this phase right here. If you see like parts that are overlapped right here, if you look, I just have layer mask set up, and it wasn't super time consuming. Probably took me about 15-20 minutes to do the whole thing. So really not a super big deal. We're going to go ahead and save what we have finished. We're going to just save it as a normal PSD file, wherever you need to save it. Make sure you save it as layers. And then we're going to jump inside After Effects and start working with those. Alright, we are back inside After Effects, and we're going to go ahead and start this portion. We're going to create a new project. And a quick tip I found is, I actually figured this one out making the tutorial. If you go ahead and double click to import, and you select, where are we going with this? If you select your file, if you can ever find it, and it defaults to import as footage. And when you can choose layers, and you'll import it, and then, you know, after you do this about 4 or 5 times, you start to realize that this is really not an efficient way of importing. Maybe all of you guys know this and I just wasn't aware, but I'm going to go ahead and point this out. So we're going to delete that because we don't need it. We're going to import, go down to our gainer sequence. If you import as a composition, layer styles I don't have any, but you can go ahead and merge them, hit OK. It'll go ahead and create a composition for you with all your layers in it in the right order. So that is super helpful, great time saver. Definitely makes your life a lot easier. Alright, so one way to do this would simply to be go inside, turn these off, take this layer, hit T to bring up the opacity, go ahead and time a little bit, put some keyframes, kill it. So then you have it animate in, you go inside this one, you can even copy these keyframes if you feel the need, paste them in, then this one appears, maybe, yeah, oh, gotta turn it on, that's why. Alright, so then this one appears like that. The problem with this is I've got 7 layers, you may have 20, 30, doesn't really matter. The point is if you don't like the spacing once you play back your animation, you think that it's too slow, too fast, you could time remap, but I'm not a huge fan of that if you want to really change your animation. You have to go inside every single one, you know, move them over, put them closer together. Really pretty time consuming. So we're going to go ahead and not do that. We're going to just delete those keyframes right there. Myself a little more room. Alright, let's go ahead and go layer, new, null object. Inside this null object, we're going to go effect, expression controls, and we're going to create a slider control. And this is going to be our control layer. call this control. And we are going to go ahead and try and control all 7 layers from this one control layer. So let's go inside layer 1. We're going to alt click on the opacity. We're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do this first. I'm hitting the tilde key to open this all the way up. We're now going to alt click on the opacity. We're going to drag it up to the slider. And all we're saying right now is we're referencing it to the slider position right here. We're going to go X equals this comp, you know, the layer control, the slider control, and yeah, we're good. Alright, we're going to go ahead and hit enter, go down, and we're going to do an if-else statement. What we're saying there is we're saying if this happens, do this. Otherwise, you're going to do this. So basically what we want is we want one keyframe that says when this slider says 1, this turns on. When this slider says 2, layer 2 turns on. When the slider says 3, layer 3 turns on. We'll have 7 keyframes, and that should be it for this entire animation. So let's go ahead and say if, do some parentheses, x is greater than 1, go ahead and do these brackets. Let's go ahead and skip a space just to keep your expression looking good. It's going to equal 100. So if it's greater than 1, our opacity for our layer 1 is going to be 100. Yeah. Else, so otherwise, another bracket, it is going to be 0. Do a semicolon, and then another bracket to close out the expression. So what this says, all it says right here is if x is greater than 1, it equals 100. Now we can make this 90. You know, no big deal. Let's go ahead and see what this is actually. Oh. I just put that inside my expression. You don't want that there. It's not liking that. Alright. There we go. So, tilde key to do that. We're going to go ahead and turn these layers off yet, because they do not have the expression applied. And as you can see, our slider is at 0, so there are no layer 1 is not showing up. Now if we put this on 1, maybe there it is. It needs to be greater than 1. So we'll put that on 1, and our layer will appear. If you watch this, it's pretty cool stuff. And we're saying we want its opacity to be at 90. So if we set that at say 40. Then, once this slider is greater than 1, then we are in business. Let's go ahead and set that back at 100. That's where I would like it. Also, with the else 0, if we could have it be at 10%, you know, of your opacity, then when it's greater than 100, greater than 1, it'll be greater than 100. So that is pretty straightforward, pretty cool stuff. Now, also, for those of you that are slightly confused by expressions, there's some awesome resources online. That's kind of how I was researching this when I wasn't sure exactly how to do. If you go, I just did a quick Google search for After Effects expressions, just popped right up. It's actually his old blog. He has a new one, motionscript.com. But I found this website super helpful. I kind of went through all the lessons, learned, kind of understood. I have experience with Flash, so that helped me a little bit, but this is really valuable stuff right here. Lesson 5 talks about if-else statements, so exactly what we're dealing with. So for those of you that are just kind of a little bit panicked about it, or I said panicked, so I saw that there, a little bit not understanding it, go on here. It's a great resource. Lesson 4, if-else statements. So cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and open these layers up. We're going to copy the expression into here. So let's go ahead and select this layer. We're going to copy. Let's go ahead, edit, copy expression only. Then select all of these, paste it in. Now they are all set to 1 right now, so we are going to need to go in. Ooh, I just totally butchered that one. Why is it? There we go. And just change that to 2. Change that to 3. Alright, and as you can see, we have 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to go ahead and select all these, hold down Shift, and just collapse them. And we're back. Let's go inside our control layer and let's set some keyframes. I'm going to go ahead and control click on here. We're going to go to frames just so we can evenly space. Every 10 frames we'll change the animation. So let's set our slider at 1. Actually, we'll go ahead and set it at 2 because it's greater than 1. Create a keyframe. Move ahead. Go to 3. 4. As you can see, this is really going to speed up our time flow, our workflow. 5. As we go on. 6. 7. And I think we need an 8th. 8. All of our layers are actually turned off. I'll turn those back on. And this should... Oh, I see what happened. Right here, if you look, we're going to have to go ahead and switch those layers. Inside Photoshop, my head was actually behind me. All you saw was my butt. It was blocking out my head. So I made the executive decision to go ahead and redo that. So my order's a little messed up, so we'll just go inside layer 5 and 6 and we'll swap those out. Make that 5 and we'll make that 6. Now, should be exactly what we're looking for. Awesome. So, we'll go ahead and preview what we've got so far. Okay, as I went to actually do a quick RAM preview, I realized we're still dealing with 3000 by 3800 by 2500 pixel images, so we're going to go ahead and just go inside our comp settings. Lock that. We're just going to scale down a little bit. Make my computer a little happier. We're going to hit S and we're just going to scale these down. Alright, here we go. And if you look at it, it looks like the animation's a little bit slow. So right now would be kind of a terrible time to see that need to go inside every single layer and change your keyframes, but we'll go ahead and hit U to bring up the keyframes on the slider control. We're going to select them all. We're going to hold down Alt, and we're just going to crunch them all in. What that's going to do is that's going to speed up our animation, so let's go ahead and see what that does. Alright, there we go. That's a much faster animation. This is, especially for this kind of sequence, this is, you know, it's not meant to be super slow. Now the cool part about using expressions to power this is we can, you know, whatever project you're working on, you can stretch it way out, have a super slow animation. I'm just holding down Alt right now, selecting all the keyframes. You can crunch them back together. I don't know what happened there. Control Z that. Hold down Alt. There we go. Now also in my preview video, if you notice, there's a white flash. Now that was just simply a solid. It's just a white solid. Keyframe the opacity. Now, I was not able to find a way to make this link with the control slider. Didn't think that was a really essential part of the tutorial. You kind of get the idea. If anybody figures out a way to trigger the flash also off the control layer, I would love to see that in the comments. I think that'd be really cool. I spent some time working on it, just wasn't working out for me, so eventually I just had to give up on it. But what I essentially did was just keyframe the flash. Don't want it to go all the way intense, just, you know, like maybe that. Put them together. And we'll have a quick fade off. Now imagine doing your entire sequence like this. It would not be very fun. That looks pretty good. So as I come in, the flash goes, boom. I also added some sound effects. You guys can also certainly do that later. But basically, you can just duplicate these keyframes as each one comes in. You can also pre-comp it. Call it flash. And then just, duplicate as necessary. Alright, you guys, I want to go ahead and thank you for your time. I hope seeing the basic workflow of a sequence be created inside Photoshop was beneficial. Also, practical use of expressions. A lot of times you learn them, not sure exactly what to do with them. So I think it's always a great way to find a way to apply it. Even if you're not creating a sequence, there's always ways that things need to be triggered in order. It's a great way to use an if-else statement. So keep learning about expressions, keep learning about After Effects, Photoshop, whatever you're doing, and have a great day.